Good morning, everyone. My name is Pat Kemp. I'm chair of the HART Board of Directors, and welcome to the August 1st, 2022 regular Board of Directors meeting. The meeting format is hybrid, and we do have some board members physically present at the HART Administrative Office, at the conference room, and participating, and others participating or via communication technology. We do not have a physical quorum for board action today. I'll ask that we please call the meeting to order, and if you can look to where the flag is displayed, or if you're near the flag, join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And with that, staff, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, ma'am. Good morning. Mayor Castor, Director Frazier, Director Hudson.
Here.
Director Johnson, Chair Kemp.
Here.
Director Knight.
Here.
Director Myers.
Here.
Director Overman.
Here.
Director Schisler.
Here.
Director Smith.
Here.
Director Vieira. Director Williams.
Here.
As you stated, Madam Chair, there is no physical quorum in place.
Thank you. And with that, we will go to public comment. Public comment participation rules are included in your packet. There was a deadline as of yesterday, and 3 members of the public are scheduled to speak. And I will recognize, or I'll remind those speaking that they're limited to 3 minutes per speaker, and please state your name for the record. And you can provide company or address if you like. First speaker is Todd Pressman. You're recognized to speak.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Directors. My name is Todd Pressman, 200 2nd Avenue South, number 451 in St. Petersburg, Florida. This morning, your staff is directing really a paradigm shift in your marketing direction to reduce or eliminate bus ads. This policy change this morning will result in the loss of an estimated maximum of $2 million of ad revenue in fiscal year 2023. Now, I'm here this morning working with Vector Media, who is your long-term and very successful advertising vendor. And we are questioning why the organization is slashing your advertising revenues at a time when HART revenues are declining or entirely disappearing in certain categories, and you've been told that your future is on a fiscal cliff. Now, Vector Media, your vendor, has provided a long history of successful ad revenues. 15 years ago, the HART ad revenue was $250,000. In 2020, Vector grew it to $1.2 million. Their estimated 2022 calendar year is $2 million. This past May and this past quarter were the most successful ad revenues in the history of your organization. So please today, the question you need to be asking is why is your staff slashing your ad budget revenues to almost $2 million when you've had year after year increases to record levels? Because the budget you have today slashes it to $500,000. Let's talk optics. You're asking the voters in November for a tax increase. How can you support that desperately needed tax increase when you are, on the other hand, reducing a stable and long time growing revenue stream? Now, with great liberty, I would suggest that that creates ill confidence for voters in that scenario. In fact, the Tampa Tribune, when they recently editorialized against the school tax coming up in August, responded or printed, quote, they did that due to public trust in its financial management and reinforced the need for accountability. So I would ask with liberty, Madam Chair and Directors, to please consider these questions and consider a motion to bring forward this issue specifically for the board for detailed review and discussion, but with generous public input and the direct input and discussion of your longtime vendor, Vector, which is the largest in the country and the state who can work with you and make your future needs and possibilities occur. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, Lori Gage.
Good morning. My name is Laurie Gage, and I'm the market manager for Vector Media here in Tampa, a position I've held for 18 years, along with my executive vice president, who is also here today, and along with our production and installation partners. We've all worked with HART for the past 18 years. I'll probably repeat a couple things that Mr. Pressman just said, but basically today we're here to ask about the radical change to the market plan. According to the budget, where HART would be deciding to walk away from $1.2 million in 2022. We at Vector Media, the current advertising partner, have not been engaged in the process to understand why there is this budget reduction in ad revenues, and we welcome being brought into the conversation. I'd like to be very clear, reduction is not a reflection on our performance. It's exceeding expectations. And like Mr. Pressman said, we had our largest revenue performance in 5 years while simultaneously operating on a 40% fleet reduction, meaning we had fewer spaces to sell to bring revenue in. We're the largest public transit advertising partner in the nation, and we're the largest in Florida. We work with Orlando, Broward, Daytona, Jacksonville, Tampa, Lake County. We've always been responsive to HART's directives, goals, objectives, with our goal to provide as much value without interrupting HART's business of moving people in the community. And to this end, when I first came to Tampa, like Mr. Pressman said, the total ad revenues were about $250,000, and now, we're up to $2 million annually in advertising sales. Additionally, we were asked to take over the Tampa Historic Streetcar Advertising Program about 8 years ago. It was previously handled internally at HART. So that program went, with only 8 cars to sell space on, went from 0 to 150,000 annually. So we are very happy to help develop the proposed plan, and we want to impress upon our extensive relationships in public transit across the nation, and our relationships with partners in fields including technology, measurement, accountability, and product development, as we feel confident we can assist HART in achieving your goals. And finally, I've been a tax-paying citizen of Hillsborough County since 2004, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Dave Dalkanowski. I'm sorry if I've got that wrong. You're recognized.
Thank you. It's Dalkansky, but when you put the SK on it, people get confused. Good morning. I am Dave Dalkansky with Vector Media. I'm the Executive Vice President responsible for 40 partnerships with transit authorities throughout the country. I've been in transit partnerships advertising for over 22 years. And we have great relationships with the transit authorities in generating revenue and doing it effectively. When we saw the proposed budget, I was very perplexed that it was dropping to $500,000. First I thought, there must be a typo error. Then my mind went to, is this one of those situations where, we're gonna rebrand? We've been through that with partners, all of our partners. There's new people that come in, staff changes, and rebrand. Let's put new lipstick on this. It's gonna get more revenue if we put lipstick on something. And the reality is, people ride the bus, the majority of them, because they have to. They don't have a choice. Granted, some people do ride the bus because they believe in public transit. When you undertake new branding initiatives, successful ones with many partners that we've worked with, we coordinate, help them so they don't end the revenue generation component of it. there's not that decline in revenues. Because when you look at branding, a couple of things. A couple months ago, you approved a marketing board. So if you want to take notes, I can give you figures. That's probably going to cost you about $50,000. Then once you have your rebranding done, you have to create the vinyl to put on the buses, and that averages about $3,000 a vehicle. So if you're looking at 150 vehicles that need to be rebranded, $450,000. So now you're at a loss of $500,000 in expenses before you even begin talking about the $1.2 to $2 million loss in revenues. Over 5 years, you're willing to walk away from $8 to $10 million in revenue that's guaranteed to you and continues to grow. That's the way it works. We have a lot of interesting ways to work around branding. We partner with groups to do that, new technologies. One technology that we would love to discuss with y'all is a way to even recognize your riders and your drivers. It's placed on the side, on the curbside. When it pulls up to a stop, if it's smart enough to say, Angela is your driver today, to develop that connection with your riders, develop that commitment to your riders. You can even take it a step further. And
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, your 3 minutes is up. Thank you. Thank you. And with that, we will not be doing the minutes this morning. We'll defer that
Commissioner Chair Kemp, I apologize. There is one more person who is present this morning to speak for public comment. Mr. Edwards.
Okay. You're recognized.
Thank you very much. I've been here waiting to speak. I don't know what the procedure is, but I think if I show up, I should be given a chance to speak. What I'm talking about this morning, I fought a HART line since Tampa Transit went out of business and HART came in with the county. This cruel way, 3 weeks ago, they locked down all of the bathrooms, all of them in the transfer centers. We heard from the bus drivers that they were instructed to tell the riders that the bus bathrooms would be closed down permanently. As late as last week, I was told by a supervisor and a supervisor with the security service and all that they had been advised by HART's lawyer that it was legal to shut down all of the bathrooms and that they would not be opening up. And you're asking us to support a tax in November? I can tell you right now, if I have to stand on the corner by myself, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to urge everybody, particularly the poor, the minorities that have supported HART over and over and over again with all these changes, and we still have not, we've been treated like y'all treated the bus driver. You all, the management and the board of directors, except Mr. Knight, owe us apologies. Mr. Knight is the only one that has been out there consistently talking to people about issues. We can't get an answer from nobody as late as last week why the bathroom was shut down. This is about the 4th or 5th time in years that they've done that. A couple of times they did it because they were supposed to remodel them and the contract was extended and cost overruns and all. How can you ask us to support HART when we can't get an answer and be treated and cruel like we're in a third world country? I've noticed parents with babies. I've noticed people with wheelchairs. Other good people can't get to the bathroom whatsoever. And if they had did something in their clothes on site, then they were going to be charged with public urination. You think that's right? Any of y'all think that's right, including the ones who's not here? Because Commissioner Cohen, who's running for re-election, I thought he would have taken an issue with this thing. Hadn't heard from him. It's flat out wrong. And I'm telling you, if we had somebody from the ACLU, American for Prosperity, or whoever group that could provide legal services, I would be willing to stand in as a person to represent in a class action suit against HART. It's wrong, and I like an apology for all of the bus riders. I drive and ride. But this continues, and it's the same thing since the formulation plan of the Marion Transit the whole system where we're supposed to start at 4 and end at 1. Why do you all keep mistreating people like that? I know what HART is trying to do with this tax. They want to put the rail, they want to put the ferry, and they want to put the trolley ahead of basic services. It's not right, and somebody needs to explain it. But I'm asking the audience who's listening today, I stand in the gap. It's wrong. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. What we'll do at this time is move right into the presentations today. The first presentation will be from Ms. Loretta Kirk, Chief Financial Officer, and she will be presenting the 2023 proposed budget. Ms. Kirk?
Good morning, Chair Kemp, members of the board, Ms. LeGrand. This is a presentation on the revised or updated proposed budget. If you recall, we presented the first proposed budget on May 25th, and we've made some updates since then. Following my presentation, Mr. Omar Alvarado, who is our Chief Delivery Officer, he'll present on the service included in the budget. Just as a reminder, this is the fourth presentation on the fiscal year 23 budget. We presented the program of projects with the split letters and discussed the various grant funding on May 19th. Then, as I stated, we had the initial proposed budget on May 25th, and then on July 18th, we presented the proposed ad valorem tax millage rate. Today, I'll share the remaining items or the remaining dates on the budget development calendar. As I stated, we're well into the calendar. This is the fourth presentation. We have a few more presentations. I'll then provide an update on the operating budget. I'll talk about the revenue assumptions, expense assumptions, and then we'll look at the summary of the proposed operating budget. And then, as I stated, Mr. Alvarado will present on the projected service. This is the budget calendar as of today. We'll have today's presentation, then we'll come back on August 15th. If we have any adjustments to the budget, we'll discuss them at that time, and we're going to concentrate on the 5-year capital plan and the fiscal year 23 capital budget. Then we have 2 public hearings scheduled for September. The first public hearing is when the board, we will ask the board to adopt the tentative millage rate and tentative budget. And then finally, on September 26th, we'll come before you and ask that the board adopt the final millage rate, and the final budget. And just as a reminder, these public hearings are at 5:30 p.m., consistent with the truth in millage regulations that all public hearings be held after 5 o'clock. And those meetings will be held here in this room. In terms of the revenues are projected, in terms of ad valorem, projected to increase by $8.3 million. Again, you certified the ad valorem taxes at $68.8 million a few weeks ago, and we budget 95% of that, or $65.4 million. Federal relief funding, the ARP, or the American Rescue Plan Act funding, if you recall, we received a total of $47.8 million. We used $9.8 million for our budget amendment. We plan to use $20.6 million in fiscal year 23, and then we'll have $17.3 million left for future budget years. Our fares that you'll see in a few minutes are based on projected ridership, and then the federal operating grants, the $4.4 million is the portion of the 5307 of funding for the program of projects that we use for operations, and our state operating grants are projected to be $9.4 million. We plan to receive from FDOT $800,000 to continue the free fares. The historical streetcar funding from the City of Tampa, $742,000. We will receive additional money from the City of Tampa for streetcar operations, $1.3 million, and our other income is $946,900. In terms of expenses, certainly the salaries and wages include the impact of the recently negotiated labor agreements. Healthcare is projected to increase by 10%. We've updated our fuel cost projections. The CNG equivalent, we're projecting at $1.62, diesel $4.50, and unleaded gas at $3.40. This is a summary of the operating budget. You can see we have the fiscal year 23 actual, the budget for fiscal year 22, which is the amended budget, and our updated fiscal year 23 budget. So these are the revenues that I've basically talked about. Ad valorem, $65.4 million. Of course, we will transfer a small portion of ad valorem to capital for those projects that we don't have federal grants to cover. I talked about the ARP, $20.6 million, federal operating $4.4 million, state operating $9.4, the fair revenue $10.9 million, local contribution, that's the money coming from Tampa, $1.3 million, the advertising revenue $500,000, other revenue $946,000, and the streetcar $742,000, with a small portion for interest income. Going back to the revenues, I'll certainly say that the total projected revenue, $114.3 million, and of course, revenues always equal expenses because we do present to you a balanced budget. So for operating expenses, the $114.3 million consists of salary and wages, $58 million, fringe benefits, $12.1 million, healthcare, $10.9 million. You can see that the total personnel costs is almost 70% of the budget, consistent with prior budgets and basically consistent with the transit industry. Total $81 million. Contract services, $8.9 million. Parts and supplies, $5.5. Insurance costs, $4.9. Fuel and oil, $7.5 million. Administrative costs, $1.3. Contract services on administrative side, $1.6. Legal services, $1.2. Utilities, $1 million. Marketing and printing, $578,000. And taxes and fees, $362,000, for a total, again, of $114,309,110. This is our level of proposed service for fiscal year 23, and as I stated a few minutes ago, our Chief Delivery Officer will present this information.
Thank you, Ms. Kirk. Good morning, Mr. LeGrand, members of the board. My name is Omar Alvarado. I'm the Chief Delivery Officer here with HART. I've been on for about 6 weeks now, so June 13th was my first day. I'm going to spend a little time today talking to you guys about the proposed service for fiscal year 2023. So one of our tasks, obviously, here has been to be as budget conscious as we can. So all the service you're going to see today is at net zero cost of our overall budget. There's some positive trends, as you see on the proposed service sheet here. In terms of the streetcar service, our ridership is actually growing on a per hour basis. That's the same case also on the fixed route side right now as well, where we're averaging and we're heading towards about 18.5 passengers per revenue hour. On the On the streetcar side, that's at about 47 passengers per hour, which is almost double of where we were during the pandemic in 2020. So here's a summary based off of service type on the kind of changes that you can expect to see for this fiscal year. We'll walk through some of the running time adjustments that we're making. We're going to implement a circulator this year, the uptown and downtown circulator. And in February, we're going to go through a system restructure, which again, the goal is to be at net zero cost overall. On the paratransit side, we made some adjustments to the peak service in the AM and the PM, and we extended some of the service ban on Saturday and Sunday as well. On the streetcar side, we went ahead and added an additional trip during our busiest peak period. So let's talk about fixed route first. On the fixed route side, what you'll see is that most of our routes had ample running time within their cycle. Really what they required was a shift between time points to better reflect the operating environment. In most cases, the early morning and the nighttime running time were just too much. Where we did see an opportunity for some growth was during the PM peak periods, and the AM peak period for that matter. You'll see on routes like the 31 and the 36, where we had some internal layovers, those have been removed as well to kind of help improve the reliability and the on-time performance. Additionally, on the 33 and the 275, we went ahead and got rid of those as well. So what we're looking to do is really mirror what's actually happening in the operating environment to what our schedules reflect. Some of our schedules had the same running time from 5 a.m. all the way to about 10 or 11 p.m. So we went ahead and refined those running times to, again, better reflect what we're seeing on the operating side in the real world. One other thing to mention, too, is the way that we've looked at our on-time performance here has added our on-time and our earlies. And when you look at on-time performance, you really want to look at those three factors separately: your on-time, your late, and your earlies. So a lot of the running time adjustments we were able to make was really to take into account what those earlies are and how they're impacting our service. So I'll start with the Route 1. This is about 11 routes that we're making changes for. We're not going to wait until October. Those changes will go into place September 18th with our next markup. So what you'll see here is the Route 1 between UATC and the Marion Transit Center, reductions in the running time in the nighttime after 9 p.m., and we've got some additions in running time and shifting between time point to time point in the PM peak. Route 5, same here, UATC down to Marion Transit Center. Reductions in the late PM after 9 p.m., reducing 7 minutes in the outbound direction and 4 minutes in the inbound direction, but adding 4 minutes of running time during the PM peak in the inbound direction and 5 minutes in the outbound direction during the PM peak. UATC to Marion Transit Center, the Route 6. Again, we took away some nighttime running time, and this was a route that had the same running time all throughout the entire day. So took some running time away after 9 p.m., but we're able to rebalance some of the running time in the PM peak and add a net of 1 minute in one direction and 2 minutes heading into the Marion Transit Center. The Route 12, Marion Transit Center, again, UATC. Reductions of about 9 and 7 minutes outbound and inbound after 9 p.m., but improvements by 3 minutes and a rebalance in the inbound direction during the PM peak. Route 30, this was a route that we did make some running time adjustments to in May. We came back to it for September because we saw there was some opportunity to make some improvements. We increased the running time by 6 minutes in the AM peak, and we rebalanced some of the running time in the westbound direction and took some time where we had some excess. Route 31, this was a route I was talking about earlier that had that internal layover. So a lot of the reduction that you'll see here is really removing that internal layover and giving that time to the operator at the end of the line at the Brandon Mall and at the Amazon warehouse on the other side. Route 33, same thing here. It had an internal layover, so we removed that. We reduced some of the running time in the nighttime, and we rebalanced some of the PM peak period as well. 34, that's between Net Park and the Northwest Transfer Center. Same here as well, the nighttime after 9 p.m. and the early a.m. before 6 a.m. we went ahead and reduced some of the running time there to better reflect what the operators are seeing. 36 was another one of those routes that we made some changes for May, but we had another opportunity here for September to add some additional running time in the AM peak period and also in the PM peak period, adding 3 minutes in each direction. The Route 39, we went ahead and added 1 minute during the PM peak and reduced those early AMs and the nighttime running times. And 45, we went ahead and rebalanced some of the PM peak and reduced some of the nighttime running times. 46, we rebalanced some of the running time in the inbound direction during the PM peak, so taking 3 minutes away from one time point, adding it to another, and reduced the late night running time by about 8 minutes. And again, this was a route that had essentially the same running time throughout the entire day. And the 400, we went ahead and added 3 minutes in the PM peak, reduced some time in the early AM, and added 3 minutes in the AM peak. So the next piece I'll talk about is the circulators that we're going to bring into effect in February. So great thing about these circulators is that they're funded with support by both public and private partners. They're going to help us create some better connectivity. They already serve the UATC, and it gives us an additional, it improves rather, access in an area where there's a high propensity for zero car ownership. So 22% is about 3 times what the county average is overall, and the funding partners for this are FDOT, Hillsborough County, and Innovative Partners. And we'll be rolling this out for February. The downtown circulator, kind of the same concept, right? Most of the costs will be covered by these funding partners, the CRAs and SPP. We have 2 different conceptual routes right now. So one on the southern district of downtown and the other on Ashley. Same thing here, you know, really it's an opportunity for us to grow without adding any additional expenses on the HART side. And the last thing I'll talk about on the fixed route side is the network redesign for February. So as I've spoken earlier, really with everything we're doing right now, we really want to stay within our current resources. That's vehicles, drivers, and everything else. We're going to look for a way to balance frequency and coverage, right? We want to reduce any duplicative service we have out there and eliminate any out of direction travel, get rid of any unproductive service, increase travel speed, so reduce the amount of time it takes to get around the area with transit, and maintain high frequencies in areas where we already have it. So routes like the 1 and the 6 aren't routes that we're going to look at for this restructure that already have 15 and 20-minute headways. So we want to maintain those corridors where there is a high level of service. And the last thing we want to do, and we kind of spoke about this with the circulators, is identify areas for alternative service modes. So that's circulators, things like on-demand service like microtransit. We want to find opportunities to do that. And overall, all this is at a zero net cost and keeps us within our current resources. Next, I'll talk a little bit about paratransit and some of the changes that we made on that side. Really excited about some of the things that we did here. But before I get into the changes, I want to provide a little historical context. So before February 2022, our coverage area for HART Plus rather, was the FTA standard 3/4 of a mile within a fixed route, bus stop, excuse me. As of February, we went ahead and changed that and doubled that service area essentially up to 1.5 miles outside of a fixed route stop. So we made changes there, but what we didn't make any changes to was how our vehicles are laid out in service. So something you'll see here is that previously, or the way we have been operating, our peak period is 10 to 11 a.m. is when we have the most amount of vehicles out in service, but that's not when we have the peak of ridership. Our peak of ridership really is, 3 p.m. and 7, 8 a.m. So we went ahead and we restructured that using the same assets and resources that we have now to better line up our resources out on the street with what our needs are from a service standpoint. So we took 6 to 7 months of ridership. That includes that 1.5 mile increase. And this is really where we end up with a really strong AM peak, a strong PM peak, and that reduction in terms of vehicles in service in the midday. Additionally, we also went ahead and we extended the service time on Saturday and Sunday. So when we had runs that were ending at about 11:45 right before midnight, there was still some ridership out there. We went ahead and extended those by an hour. So you'll have paratransit service into about 1 a.m. on both Saturday and Sunday. And the last thing I'll touch on is the streetcar changes. Great opportunity for growth here. Like I said earlier, streetcars at about 47 passengers per hour. And really the peak of that demand for us is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. between 1 a.m. to 9 p.m. 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. So we're going to add an additional vehicle. We're going to change the frequency from every 15 minutes to every 12 minutes, which will give us an additional vehicle in each direction, additional trip rather. There is some additional, obviously, demand after 9 p.m., but the vehicles we have out there are actually enough to service that. Where you're seeing a lot of those pass-ups where drivers just kind of completely full and he can't make a stop at that stop is really between that 1 p.m. and 9 p.m. period. So we're going to go ahead and add that for February. And that's it for me. Any questions or comments? Great. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. No question. Commissioner Overman.
Thank you. That was a great presentation, and it helps us understand how improving our delivery of service and reliability of services helps. I have two questions. One, what is the process for letting people know that the pickup times are going to change based on these changes, and what's our process for making sure the public is aware that especially in a couple of them, there's significant, gain times, it looks like. So we want to make sure that those people know that given the frequency, may pick up some, but if they miss it because we picked up, 20 minutes, that matters. So I'm curious what that process is going to look like. And then the second question has to do with I'm really glad to see that the circulators are coming into place because we were able to find both a private partnership to make all that work along with FDOT. We have a very high population of people without vehicles in the South County area where we have flex service now. And I'm curious if we looked at the cost of the flex service versus establishing a circulator that gets from the Waimama area over to Sun City at least to pick up at that stop, what the cost comparison would be. So if that could be either, or if that has already been addressed, is that something that we could look at? Because I know that area has really wanted the circulator services. There's so many people that pay, $50 to go to the grocery store because that's the closest store over in Sun City Center, or the closest major, employment center as well as store in that area. So I'll stop there to give you an opportunity. Thank you.
No, great
presentation.
And those are great questions, and thank you for that. So I'll start with the second question. As far as South County goes, that's one of the places we're looking at for the restructure in February. So certainly we don't have any cost analysis yet on the flex, but that'll be part of our process for February. In terms of how we communicate changes to the public, so we're working through right now finalizing our run cut review and our roster review with our union. Once we've got final stamp of approval from them, the next step in the process is us sending all of those new schedules to our marketing team, who will then work on communicating that out to the public, in terms of departure boards at different places like the transit centers, pushing out communication into like the apps and things of that sort. Kemley can actually take you a little deeper in terms of the marketing. You want to come up for half a second? And just tell you kind of the full scope of how we communicate those from markup to markup.
Excellent, thank you.
Good morning, Kemley Green, Director of Customer Experience. Yes, we do have a full set of outreach for our community, so definitely with them, the call center is a big informational piece as well. We do have that information available. We meet with the customer service reps. We have the flyers and the schedules that will be printed and will be available at the transit centers. The One Bus Away and the Google Maps, we actually set it up so a few days, usually a week or two beforehand, customers will be able to see what the future schedule is when they change the date on their apps as well. So we do have several pieces on social media, print, and through the call center.
Excellent, thank you very much. I was going to also ask a budget question, but I wanted to make sure everyone else had a chance to address what was discussed.
At this time, I don't see anyone else, I don't think.
I'll go back to the budget question, if that's okay with you, Chair. When we were looking at the revenues coming in, and we obviously heard from one of our vendor partners today regarding the revenue that's been increasing, being used to help offset, you know, the marketing costs internally, but also other costs, because it's well in excess of what we've set aside as a budget for marketing, or what we've been spending for marketing. I did want to ask a quick question as it pertains to the budget. There was mention of the federal funding coming in, and that we were using about $20 million, if I wrote my notes right. And there was a comment that was meant of, you know, projects that were not obtained because we didn't have sufficient revenue or local dollars to be able to qualify for those grants. Do we have an understanding of how much local revenue shortage we have for those federal grants that we don't qualify for? Do you know what that number is?
Commissioner Overman, this is Loretta Kirk. When we went through the capital plan, and we'll talk about the capital plan in detail on August 15th, but when we initially went through the capital plan, we were able to match up each project with a capital grant. The only amount that we couldn't match up was this $95,000. And so, you know, the ad valorem taxes we can use for operating or capital. And so you can see in prior years, we were using almost $1 million and $10 million in 2021. But we were able to match everything up with capital grants. And right now we're only projecting to use $95,000 of ad valorem taxes for capital for fiscal year 23.
Okay. And are we actually pulling down any reserves with the projected 2023 budget of the funds that we've collected in federal funds over the last couple of years?
No.
Because I know we used a lot of those funds to replenish our reserves, but I can't tell from this. It shows that we're not adding anything, but it doesn't show whether we're using any either that I can tell from this presentation.
Okay, and I can put a slide in for the next presentation, but right now we started the year with $15 million in reserves, and we expect to remain at the $15 million, not to add anything, but certainly not to reduce the reserves. And that would be about 50% of, you know, board policy requirement.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you very much for your answers. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I don't see any others. I actually have a couple of comments on the transit side, the operational presentation that was made. I just wanted to point out just a couple things. I am looking forward to the heat mapping to actually see, and this was a little unrelated to the timings, but I know some of those routes, and I didn't want to go through the individual routes, but significant portions of them have lower ridership while another portion has higher ridership, and I'd really like to see in the future, you know, how we can deal with that. Perhaps the extended lesser ridership could be on a you know, more circumscribed schedule, less frequency in those areas and more frequency in the areas where we have higher ridership, so that we could serve both in a appropriate way. But we'll have to look for the heat mapping there, and I look forward to that. And I was excited to see the work on all the routes and to get a chance to talk to Omar, who I hadn't really had a chance with. But as well, I just wanted to, just a few things. Those are the first time we've reintroduced the circulators, and it's all three of them, although I'm really pleased. The downtown in particular were, you know, through COVID and other things were not implemented, but they are all pilot projects. They all have funding, additional funding, and so I'm really looking forward to seeing how the numbers come in on those and how useful they are and what the costs are and how that works out in the future. And it's a really new time for HART, and I'm very pleased to see us moving forward on this, and I'm very, I'll be looking forward to watching the ridership numbers and seeing the fiscal numbers too and how they work out. And this was thrown in for the first time, so the paratransit, I think I didn't see that on the original presentation. This is really just a small question, but at one point you talked about the paratransit, and I'm always pleased to see us extend our paratransit services. But did you say to have some service till 1 a.m. on paratransit?
That's correct, yeah. There were a number of trips that we weren't able to service on Saturday and Sunday. And again, it might be because we extended that buffer from 3/4 mile to 1.5 mile. But, we were able to extend that at zero-sum cost, so it was something that was easy to do.
Okay, thank you. And I think we can, perhaps, because I do not see any other questions about all of this, move on.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Mr. Myers has a
Yes.
hand raised.
Madam Chair, this is
I'm
Commissioner
sorry.
Myers.
Oh, okay, I'm looking at the, I see your hand now. I've been looking back and forth, thank you. Okay, Commissioner Myers, you're recognized.
Thank you, and good morning. I'd like to address two issues that was brought during the public comment this morning. One is regarding the advertising. To lose a revenue, looking at 2021, $1,739,038. In fiscal year 22, $1,233,398. And now we're at $500. Ms. LeGrand, can you explain what we're going to put in place or how we're going to generate revenue, since the advertising company has generated revenue for HART and now we are cutting this particular line item?
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, board members. Good morning, Commissioner Myers. So that's a great question, and I know we've had a lot of conversation around advertising, branding, and we're fortunate that the board supported us extending the Vector Media contract, which actually expired last December, if you recall. And we came to you and asked for an extension of 6 months at that time, which we extended it to June of this year, and then we came back to you again and asked for another extension to the end of this calendar year. And the reason why we asked for the extensions is to do exactly what you just asked, was to secure a contract with the company to help us understand how we can generate the lost revenue from having our vehicles wrapped. So I just want to be very explicit here. We are not suggesting at any point in time, and that's why there's no $0 associated with advertising, because we're not saying we're going to walk away from advertising. What we're looking to do is no longer wrap our vehicles with brands and advertisements that really don't elevate our HART brand and what HART means to the community. So in doing this assessment and making sure we have data and analytics to support what we're doing, we asked for this extension so we can continue to generate the revenue that the Vector team did a great job sharing with us, and also work on a transition plan on how do we look at other methods to actually get more revenue, as well as find new revenue sources that come with this program. So we're going through the process. We do have a vendor, as you're aware. The board did approve the selection of a firm, and we have weekly meetings with them. Just had a meeting with them last Thursday, and they're doing well with their analytics and helping us to understand what we can do in this market as it relates to our new brand, as well as, opportunities to generate more revenue. The last thing I would say on this is that, everything we do here, and I see our Director of Procurement in the back of the room looking at me and nodding like, okay, you can say that, and shaking like, don't go down that road. It's about, competition. So I do recognize that we have a vendor right now who is on an extended contract to the end of the year, but when we move forward, we'll put an RFP in the street and we'll get competition that will, go through the process and come back before the board to select the vendor to move forward with advertising. So to sum up, Commissioner Myers, we are going through the process. We understand that the revenue generated is important. It represents a little less than, I would say, 1% of our overall budget, and every dollar counts, and we recognize that, but we also understand that our brand has value as well, and the value of our brand is not synonymous with the revenue that we're getting from the advertising dollars.
Thank you so much, Madam CEO. One of the concerns that I have, and I hear it all the time, is brand and rebranding and constantly from not only HART, but other organizations. And my concern is how much you really want to rebrand a brand when you have an agency like HART is already well known in the community. So what is it you're rebranding to keep branding that is really going to make a difference of what you're not doing now that you want to do in the future?
Right, that is also a great question. So first, as it goes specifically to branding as it relates to assets, right, the brand on an asset. Right now, our brand is, in some places, depending on the wrap. So if we have a wrap, for example, we have several vehicles that are wrapped right now with 411 paint. So pretty much the entire vehicle says 411 paint. And if you look really closely, you might see a little HART logo. So when I speak about branding in this context, I'm speaking specifically about, how do you see HART portrayed on our assets? In this case, we're talking about a bus. We want to be able to make sure that people who ride the service, as well as people who we'd like to attract to riding the service, see a bus go through the community, and it represents what HART is here to do, which is to move people, not necessarily to be a billboard for specific advertisements. So that's what I mean specifically when I say that we're looking to no longer wrap our buses in advertisements, but wrap it in the HART brand, not suggesting that it's not going to say HART, it will, but it's not going to have that wrap. So on the vehicle, we're working with our vendor on the marketing contract to see, what are the images that we want our vehicles to have as it moves through the community that says HART and signifies HART as it goes through. So that's one. Interior on the vehicles, we'll have advertisements. I know you've all been on our vehicles, so we have the cards on the vehicle, so that's something that we'll continue to do. We also have our, assets on the street, our shelters, our bus stops, so those are also opportunities to look at how we physically have advertisements on those. And then specifically the overall brand of HART, a part of what we're doing in this contract are some focus groups, and the vendor is scheduled to come and present to the board in some subsequent meetings. But doing some focus groups, really understanding what the community sees the HART brand to mean. Sometimes when you're doing the work and you're just looking at it, we know what HART means. But, there's some folks, as, was mentioned earlier, who've never been on a bus. So when they hear HART, what does it mean to them? And what should it mean to them? Or what are their feelings around being able to be in a community that really provides a viable option of mobility? And how do we ensure that when you see that brand or that logo, that it evokes this type of emotion, that this is a great asset and we need to continue to support it? So I would say it's similar to if you see Tampa General logo and it's associated with the hospital, and nobody wants to be in the hospital, nobody wants to be sick, no one wants to visit sick loved ones, but if you're in an accident and someone has to take you to the hospital and you're going to Tampa General, you're happy it's in this community because you're going to get great service. So it's that kind of attachment and community value that we're working to, with our vendor, our marketing contract, to make sure that, one, we understand what the community would like HART to represent, what do they see it representing today, and how do we ensure that we're doing everything to elevate our brand.
Thank you so much. And my second question is concerning, still from public comments, all of the bathrooms at the transit stations, which I represent District 3, and in District 3, I know there are 3 transit stations, Marion, Eastlake, and USF, and I know we had a conversation. At the time, I thought it was only just USF restrooms was closed, but to hear this morning, they're all of them. And so, mentioned that from a legal point of view, that the lawyer said to close them, but I know at the Marion Transit downtown and the Eastlake, there's no closed facility for a rider to go to. At the Marion Transit, it'll probably be the Burger King downtown or Eastlake, and we're now asking other entities to allow our riders to come use their restroom. So with this impact, that is really hurting our riders, because I'm pretty sure when some transfer, they're going to have to use the restroom. What is the length of time that we're looking at that our restrooms remain closed? And could we, and I mentioned to you about porta johns, and you said you would look at that we can have something on site where that we have a restroom facility that when they transfer, they can use the restroom on our sites.
I'm happy to go ahead and at least address the legal aspect of it. Without getting into too many specifics, it's my understanding that there has become some significant safety issues at our bathrooms in the way they are secured and the way they are managed. And while I can appreciate and understand the frustration of the general public, it's also important that we ensure that all of our facilities are safe, as we don't want to see anything occur. So I think at this point, while we're deciding how the best way to secure our bathrooms, having them closed is probably the best from a liability perspective. But I understand that there is a plan moving forward, and there's discussion moving forward on how we can better secure our restroom facilities and ensure that members of the public who are using them are going into a facility that is safe and that is secure. So I'll ask Ms. LeGrand to comment any further if she has anything additional.
Oh, okay, thank you. So everything that Ms. Mandel said is accurate, and we're working to make sure that we're providing safe, comfortable experience for our customers. We do recognize it's an inconvenience, and we apologize for inconveniencing folks as we go through this transitional time, and we're working diligently to make some improvements. You're right, Commissioner Myers, all of the bathrooms are closed, and we have a plan in place to bring them online. We are focusing on the most heavily utilized locations to try to bring online first. As I mentioned with you and some of you who use our facilities, in some cases, we don't have an entrance door into the facility, which prohibits us from providing the safety and the security that we know we need to provide for our customers. So our first plan is to get doors, exterior doors, so that we can lock the doors and provide an opportunity for folks to get a key from security and gain access. So really a part of the process here is to create our security protocols, actually, building doors and locks and, using technologies with cameras to really be able to provide more security. And then the second part is to improve the interior of the restrooms. In some cases, there needs to be some repairs, and we're working on that as well. The team knows, I had a meeting this morning even before we met. Mr. Drainville sitting there, his team is doing the work, and we met this morning. And I see Mr. Smith, Dale Smith is the Director of Facilities. He and I were out in the facilities last week. So we are working to see how quickly we can make these improvements. I will say there are a little supply chain hurdles that we're trying to overcome with these new doors, but we are working tirelessly to get it done. And, our objective is to get the bathrooms back open, as soon as possible. And we will make sure that we provide, frequent updates, not only to the board, but we are also working through customer service to make sure that we can get the information out.
And thanks so much for your comments and all that you said. I appreciate hearing that. And I understand safety is number one. But will HART be willing to put a porta john on the property so that when our riders come, a transfer, they can use the restroom? Can your staff look into that?
Yes, ma'am, we can.
Okay. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I just want to assure you, Commissioner Myers and anyone else, that next on the agenda was the CEO's report, and I had that myself as well. So I appreciate I think it's really important for us to let everyone know what's happening and deal with it as expeditiously as we can. And I'm just wondering if I'd also ask that we look at any any options we may have, maybe nearby or available to deal with this in the interim. And I know that the staff has been doing that. I know I've asked many questions about the speed of this and how we can do this. And it was important for us to hear, I think, from Ms. LeGrand and our legal counsel about it, and hope that we have this resolved as soon as possible. And with that, Ms. LeGrand, do you have other items in the CEO's report?
Madam Chair, it seems like Commissioner Overman's hand is raised.
And so, and I see several hands. Okay, at this point, okay. We can continue this discussion into the CEO's report, Commissioner Overman. Commissioner Overman.
Commissioner Overman, you're muted.
Yeah, I'm muted. My apologies. Actually, Melanie had raised her hand during public comment, so I'm going to ask if it's the chair's pleasure if she could go ahead and speak.
Yes, Director Williams.
Thank you, Commissioner Overman. Thank you, Chair Camp. When Mr. Edwards brought this to our attention, my question, I know this is centered around safety and some of the aspects we have to take from there. I just am curious if that conversation, if we had any of that conversation through the Operations and Safety Committee, it's something that that is very important, and I think that I may have missed that opportunity, so I want to just openly talk about the fact that something of that nature I would think would come through the Safety Committee and would be an alert that we would be made aware of right away. So just commenting. And then the second aspect of that is the transition. When we make decisions of this nature, is there a transition that we would put in place until we get to the long-term plan? So those are a couple of questions I wanted to bring up during public comment, and to acknowledge Mr. Edwards' feedback to us, and acknowledge it as the chair of the Operations and Safety Committee, considering it's a safety issue.
Thank you. Do we have Ms. LeGrand? Would you like to respond to Ms. Williams, Director Williams?
Sure. I would say yes to both of those, Director Williams.
In terms of it, Director Williams, I did not, I think you make good points in terms of that. So hopefully we can maybe be reporting on this through that committee, and we'll move now. Was your hand up next, Commissioner Overman?
Yes, thank you. And I didn't want to ask the same question that Director Williams was going to bring up. But I do have concerns. I mean, we have spent significant money in security. It's obviously part of the plan is the security would have a key with the new plan. And yet we've closed all of them at the same time, when it would appear as though there's security already on site at those locations. So I'm really curious about the decision to close all of them at the same time. And we have not heard enough, obviously, from marketing on communicating to our riders that the restrooms were going to be closed and then reopened. Because what we heard this morning was an understanding from a rider, longtime rider, that there was miscommunications at the locations that they would be closed permanently. So I'm thinking we need to address this concern. If there is a way that at least on one of those circulator routes, of which many of our riders use, and there may be multiple bathrooms along those ways or restrooms on those ways, that they could be staggered, so at least one of the restrooms would be open. I understand liability, but I also, we've had that liability for a long time. And we've addressed that liability by having security on site. So I am curious about what could be done to address the fact that we are asking other surrounding businesses to take on the liability without permission. and for our riders. And I do believe that that's a challenge that should be addressed. And maybe I missed it, but I don't recall this coming up during that committee before it got updated recently to prepare for today. So I'm curious if there is a way to at least have one site available to our riders as we move forward in improving the restroom services to our riders and making sure we communicate to the riders accurately that when they will be reopened, because I did not hear that either. And I'll stop there. It's a question.
I understand. Is there any response? Again?
Hi, this is Julie Mandel, General Counsel. In listening to the comments, what I'm going to make a suggestion is that we go ahead and make this a discussion item at the Operation and Safety Committee, and at that point in time, it'll give us a chance to discuss those things that we can discuss, because I do want us to be cognizant that there may be things that we shouldn't be discussing on the record as it relates to potential liability, and that way I can we can have a conversation with the CEO and the safety folks as to a proper way to proceed forward.
That's 2 weeks from now, right?
Yes.
So we're going to do nothing between now and 2 weeks from now?
That's not what I suggested. I just suggested that we go ahead and have an additional conversation about it at the Operation and Safety Committee, as it did not come up at the previous one. As it relates to a plan moving forward, I'll leave that to the administration. I just wanted to say that we should take an action to put that, well, we can't really take an action, but I think we can have a consensus to at least have that as part of our discussion at the Operation and Safety Committee per the comments of Director Williams.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, may I respond?
Yes.
Okay, so Director Overman. Okay, so Director Overman, first, I would say that, again, I do empathize and I understand the inconvenience associated with not having the restrooms open. As someone who is ridden, I'm just trying to reflect back on, my times, not only here in Tampa, but just throughout my life utilizing transit. I'm someone who used transit for my only mode of transportation for most of my life. And I do understand that there is, a desire and a need in some occasions to be able to gain access to restrooms. But I can also tell you that if a restroom is not managed appropriately with the appropriate resources that are dedicated to managing the restroom, so there's a difference between being dedicated to manage a restroom versus being assigned to monitor a facility or a site. That is not the same. So if I am the security who is assigned to a specific location, and my job is to make sure that that site is safe and I'm walking around or driving around, but I'm not assigned to a bathroom or a restroom, that doesn't mean that I, as the CEO of an agency, feels comfortable that I'm providing my customers with the best, safe, secure environment. So that's number one. Number two, as I mentioned, we don't have the doors, so we have to do some, I would say, light construction to get the facility to a place where we can actually now, work within the resources that we have, utilize the security service that we have, but also give them a key and put a plan in place so that we know that, as Ms. Mandel said, we are minimizing our risk and maximizing the opportunity to have a better experience. Number three, I would say, in this part, I definitely have worked hard to make sure that we are very transparent and we bring the board along as we make decisions. But as you can imagine, things happen between committee meetings and board meetings where decisions have to be made. I made the decision that we would close the bathroom after having a conversation with one of the chiefs about the restrooms and some of the concerns that had been posed, and I said we're going to go ahead and close it. I reached out to as many of you as I could contact to share with you that the restrooms were closed. So yes, the objective is to make sure everything comes through committee, but I want to be clear that there can't be an expectation that everything is going to find its way through committee, because in some cases, decisions have to be made. The last thing I would say is that the restrooms are for our customers. And it is, I would say, an amenity that we're providing to our customers at specific locations so that, again, they can have the comfort and the best experience that we can provide. In some cases, our restrooms are not being utilized by customers. They're being utilized by others, and it's creating an unsafe environment. As I've said to many of you, our objective here is to make sure that nothing terrible and nothing bad happens in our restrooms. We're fortunate that that has not happened, that we have to have a special meeting to talk about something nefarious that has occurred, and we want to move forward and be proactive and not rely on luck. So that's where we are. When you mention timeline, I can throw out a date. My concern with that is if that date is not the date that we actually reopen the restrooms, then people will feel like we misled them. Right now, I am not in a position to give you a firm date because of the supply chain issues that were brought to my attention last week. We're trying to do a workaround on that, and hopefully we'll have some information this week which would allow us to give a better date. What I can commit to is that between now and before Labor Day, we should at a minimum have a few of the restrooms reopened and actually have an implementation plan in place or a transition plan in place, to use Director Williams' terminology, so that we can ensure that all of our customers understand where we're going and what to expect next. And then I will also share from the customer experience perspective, our Director of Customer Experience, Ms. Kimberly Green, has communicated through all their mechanisms that the restrooms were closed. I am unsure of how or where Mr. Edwards got his information, but it is clear, and we have posted signs that say the bathroom, I think it's something like, sorry for your inconvenience, the bathrooms are going through a renovation, but there's nothing that we have that says they're going to be closed permanently. So unsure of where that information, it seems like he was speaking to an individual operator is what he said, and that was the information he received. We'll reiterate and make sure that all of the operators are using the script that we have provided to them. So I hope this has answered your questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a few more, Director Knight.
Again, thank you. Thanks for the comments. I just feel, like some of the comments, like Director Smith on operation and safety, that it would be nice, to know some of these things. As you recall, I don't think that we should be using time right now talking on this, because a couple weeks ago, and not to badger anybody, I let the CEO know. I asked Mr. Drainsville to meet me down there. I talked to Chair Lady Kemp about this, and she wasn't aware. Okay, when I asked them, because I went down there 3 different times, almost an hour a time. I don't agree with it. I feel that it can be worked out. I don't think it's about the doors, because with my understanding, the doors were took off to make it even safer, getting in and out. Security, if we need to get another person down there, specifically Marion or wherever, let's do it. I think we can do it. I really support you. And I love the HART, and everything about it. That's why I'm here. But I feel that it's something that can be worked out. And if we're going to talk about it in a couple of weeks on the operation and safety, then we need to do something now. That's what I feel. Everybody aware. And we wasn't notified. And we're getting hit like it's all our fault or whatever. I'm not blaming anyone, but all I'm saying is I observed people in wheelchair, crutches, different things, trying to get to those restrooms and stuff like that. It made me really mad and concerned, and I voiced my concern. It shouldn't have to be that way. I couldn't even use the restroom. When I was down there, I left a board meeting, went down there, and walked around, talked to everybody, went all inside. Yes, go going all around there, they're trying to get in there, that have some real needs. I'm not talking about the other people who may not or whatever, but we can deal with those things. So all I'm asking is, for the sake of the people that we love and we appreciate utilizing HART services, let's make it safe, let's make this thing work, and I know you can do it. And that's what I told Mr. Scott Granville and others. Something happened where he couldn't meet me down there, but I was down there. So all I'm asking is that, please, help this go away. Thank you.
And also, Commissioner Smith would like to comment, so maybe before we respond, if you want to, you could hear from Commissioner Smith as well. Commissioner Smith?
Thank you, and I'm just going to say here to the board what one of the suggestions I had that I voiced to Ms. LeGrand is that we work, she works directly with representatives of the city. We have, so I just wanted to say that here we do have members of city government on our board, and I would hope that they could work with City of Tampa Police Department on an interim basis while we're solving this problem to provide extra security, extra, to focus on any location where there has been a security issue. I think that might be in the purview of the Tampa Police Department, and would hope that our board members who represent Tampa government may be able to work with HART on that in the interim. Thank you.
Okay, and I do not see any other hands raised at this time. And I'm Ms. LeGrand, Ms. Mendel, if there's any further comments that you would like to make with regards to this. Okay.
The only other comment I'd make is I wanted to, if this is something that you want to have specifically discussed at the Operation and Safety Committee, that there's consensus of the board to place that as part of the agenda. We can't take a vote on that because we don't have a physical quorum, but I think consensus would allow that to be continued to be discussed. I know in the meantime the administration is working on it, but at least it would be an opportunity to have that discussion as part of that agenda.
Right. Thank you. I know that was said earlier, and we will be working on this book. Thank you for all the comments by board members and CEO and the General Counsel as regards to this, and it looks like we'll be at least regularly updated, and we can follow this, and maybe there are some other interim solutions, or at least can address the problem somewhat in the interim between this meeting and the Safety Committee meetings. And with that, Ms. LeGrand, do you have other items in the CEO's report?
So just quickly, I know we've had a lot of discussion here, and I do appreciate having the opportunity to engage in this manner. I just want to say, not to belabor the point, that the staff, the team, we are well aware of the need to make sure that we are creating the best environment possible for our customers. Today we're talking about restrooms. Other meetings we've talked about bus stops and shelters. Just making sure that the system is a system, that is attractive to everyone. And a comment was made today, and I don't recall exactly who said it during the public comment period, but it was something akin to the fact that, people who ride transit are the people who have no other choice. We cannot move forward with this mentality that we're just providing subpar service because the people who use it have no other choice. It is offensive, it's inappropriate, and that's not what HART is about. So I just want us all, I know sometimes it's sticky, I know it's difficult, but change creates a better outcome. We're not trying to do anything big and magnificent. We're not trying to erect new, facilities. We're trying to make the basic things that people should have something that everybody would want. Someone mentioned, someone with a baby and the bathrooms are closed and they can't change. I have 4 babies and I was riding transit. And I will tell you that I took a lot of pause to think about where I would take my baby in a transit system to a restroom to change their diaper, when nobody's coming behind the last person to wipe off the surface. No one's coming behind the last person who may be experiencing homelessness, who's made the bathroom a little untidy, has come behind to make it fresh and inviting for a passenger who paid their fare. So I understand the concerns. I understand the hesitation to be comfortable with doing something that is an inconvenience. But I also understand the implication when you don't, the lack of respect that you show to the community who has to rely on our service, to make them feel that it's okay to accept less than. It's okay to not have real security to make sure that you're safe. It's okay that when you get to the bus stop after working in hospitality at 11 o'clock at night and you ran out because you didn't want to miss the last bus, and you go into the restroom and you see things that you don't want to see, and you make an option of, I'll just hope I can get to my destination without, having an accident. These are the types of conditions that we are wanting to make sure we do not contribute to. So yes, I understand that it is inconveniencing. I understand that people, have their own individual, feeling toward the decisions that are being made. But I want you to know, from someone who not only is leading this agency, but someone who uses transit here in Tampa, who's spent a lifetime using systems all over the United States, that restrooms in most transit agencies that do not have a dedicated person to manage the restrooms are not an attractive environment. We have the opportunity to change that here at Tampa, at HART, and that's what the team is working on doing. So I just want you to know, just take it in some context. It's not me not taking this seriously, it's the opposite. We have to take it seriously. And lastly, I would say this. We've had some serious, I would say, less than desirable interactions here at HART with the outside world, if you will. It's my job, it's our job, right? I'm taking some liberty here telling you that this is your job as well, so I hope you give me this little opportunity to do so. But it's our job to ensure that we're doing everything in our power to make sure that our customers are safe. We're doing everything in our power to attract people to using the best transit system that we have to offer. We're bringing the best and brightest here to make sure that we can make improvements within our budget to make the experience better. All of this wrapped together is what we're here to do. So I would ask you to, just take a moment and think about, are we all doing what we are here to do, which is to elevate the brand and provide the best service possible, and then doing things that may be a little bit uncomfortable for a short period of time to ensure that we can continue making things better for our customers. So, that wasn't my planned update, but I just felt compelled today, listening to all the conversations, to share that with you, and I hope you appreciate that. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for those comments, and I was really kind of taken aback, actually, at public comment when those comments were made, what was stated about who rode transit and their expectations, and I was a little shocked. So I appreciate you responding to that and as well as sharing your comments on this situation. We will move. I will not make any comments at this time in Chair's report, but we can move to General Counsel. Are there this issue or any others that you?
The only comment, again, Julia Mandel, General Counsel, the only comment I wanted to make is to remind everybody that the budget meeting on September 12th and September 26th require an in-house, in-person quorum in order to be able to vote to approve our budget. So I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of it and that they've make whatever plans that they can make in order to ensure that we have the physical quorum present. Otherwise, we will have other issues we'll need to manage. So I just would respectfully request that everybody make sure that they can attend the September 12th and 26th meetings in person as necessary. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And with that, we will move to old business. Yes, Commissioner Myers?
Oh, I'm sorry, I put my hand up waiting for new business.
Oh, okay. So, okay, and new business?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. One quick question regarding our transportation sales surtax. Ms. LeGrand, would you be providing us an update to share for transparency what you're going to submit to the county or what will go to the consultants? You know, I don't want to be in the community asking what is HART going to do, which I've already been asked that, and I have no answers, except the report that came to the Board of County Commissioners, I want to say back in April.
Madam Chair, may I respond?
Yes.
Okay. Director Myers, anything that relates to the surtax that we submit to the consultant, we will definitely make sure that you have access to it and we make it available. Thus far, we have not engaged in outside of meeting and greeting type of thing with the consultant. So as we move forward, we'll definitely make sure.
So that would be perhaps by our September meeting, we will have some information that you would be able to share with this board?
Yes, I'll get with the consultant and find out what their schedule is and make sure you're aware of that as well.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, and
So I have one new business. I have one quick new business update.
Who said that?
This is Ms. LeGrand. It's me. Okay.
Speaking, but I didn't expect you to have new business, so.
Right, well, I just wanted to make an announcement that on August 11th, here at the EBOR office from 5:30 to 6:30 will be our first Riders Advisory Committee meeting. And this is a committee that is comprised of public customers, citizens, to really talk about transit and what they'd like to see. So I just wanted to let you know that it is August 11th again from 5:30 to 6:30 here in this same room.
I think that's excellent, and thank you for making that. I'm very excited to see that coming forward, and if I am able to, I will definitely be there, so thank you. August 11th, 5:30. Okay, and with that, we now stand adjourned.
Okay.